In a small town, there was a boy named Sam who struggled in school. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't keep up with his classmates. His grades were low, and he often felt invisible. Teachers overlooked him, and other kids teased him for being slow. Sam started to believe that maybe he wasn't good enough. Every time the teacher called on him, Sam's heart pounded in his chest. He would fumble his words or give the wrong answer, and the class would burst into quiet giggles. "Come on, Sam," they'd whisper, "it's easy." But it never felt easy to Sam. At home, Sam's parents were kind but busy. They worked long hours, and though they loved him deeply, they didn't always notice how much he was struggling. His report cards came home with comments like "needs improvement" and "not working to potential." Over time, Sam started to believe what everyone seemed to think, that he just wasn't smart enough. Then, one chilly autumn morning, everything changed. A new teacher arrived at Sam's school. Her name was Mrs. Carter. She was young, with bright eyes that sparkled when she smiled, and she spoke with a soft, calm voice that made the classroom feel warmer. On her very first day, she did something different. Instead of diving straight into lessons, she asked each student to tell her something special about themselves. When it was Sam's turn, he shrugged. "I don't know," he mumbled, staring at his desk. "I'm not really good at anything." Mrs. Carter paused, tilting her head thoughtfully. Then she smiled and said, "I don't believe that for a second, Sam. I bet you have something wonderful to share, we just need to find it." Sam didn't know what to make of that. No teacher had ever talked to him like that before. They usually just sighed or moved on quickly when he didn't have an answer. Over the next few weeks, Mrs. Carter began to notice things about Sam that others overlooked. While he struggled with reading and math, she saw how his eyes lit up during science class, especially when they talked about how things worked. When they did a project on building simple machines, Sam's hands moved with confidence, carefully assembling parts while explaining how they fit together. One day after class, Mrs. Carter pulled Sam aside. "Sam," she said gently, "I've noticed something. You're really good at figuring out how things work. Do you know that's a kind of intelligence? Some people are good with numbers, some with words, and others, like you, are great with their hands and minds working together." Sam blinked, unsure how to respond. No one had ever called him smart before. In fact, he'd spent so long feeling the opposite that it felt strange to hear. But Mrs. Carter wasn't done. "You know," she continued, "being smart isn't just about grades. It's about how you solve problems, how you think, and how you keep trying even when things are hard. And Sam, I see that in you every day." Sam blinked, unsure how to respond. No one had ever called him smart before. In fact, he'd spent so long feeling the opposite that it felt strange to hear. But Mrs. Carter wasn't done. Sam walked home that day with a strange feeling in his chest, something warm and unfamiliar. Could it really be true? Could he be smart, just in a different way? From that day on, something shifted in Sam. He still struggled with reading and math, but he didn't give up as easily. He started to see his mistakes as part of learning, not proof that he wasn't good enough. Mrs. Carter continued to encourage him, celebrating every small victory. When he finally solved a tough math problem, she didn't just say, "Good job." She said, "See? I knew you could do it." Years passed, and Sam carried Mrs. Carter's words with him like a secret treasure. He made it through school, focusing on the subjects he loved. After graduating, he trained as a mechanic, finding joy in fixing engines and solving mechanical puzzles. His hands, once fumbling with textbooks, now moved with skill and precision, bringing broken machines back to life. One rainy afternoon, now in his mid-20s, Sam stood in his small but bustling repair shop, wiping grease from his hands. The bell above the door jingled, and in walked a man with his young son. The boy was about 10 years old, with messy hair and eyes that reminded Sam of himself at that age, curious, but carrying a hint of uncertainty. As Sam worked on the man's car, he noticed the boy quietly watching him, fascinated by the tools and the moving parts. After finishing the job, Sam crouched down to the boy's level and said with a warm smile, "Hey, you've got a sharp eye. I bet you'd be great at fixing things like this one day." The boy's face lit up, a smile spreading across his face. His father chuckled and ruffled his son's hair, but Sam saw something deeper in the boy's eyes, something that told him those words mattered. As the man and his son left, Sam leaned back against his workbench, thinking of Mrs. Carter. He realized that her simple words had changed the course of his life, and now, he had passed that gift on to someone else. Sometimes, all it takes is one person to see something in you that you can't yet see in yourself. A few kind words, a little encouragement, can light a spark that lasts a lifetime. And when you believe in someone, you give them the power to believe in themselves, and that's a gift that keeps on giving.